So when we multiply and divide equations, you guys did this a little bit yesterday with the hands-on equations when you had two variables on one side. Just like when you had 3 pawns on one side of your balance, this means 3 times x. If you had 3 pawns on one side of your balance and 18 on the other, what did you do to figure out the value of one pawn, Chase?
Times it by 6.
Well, so in your head, you're thinking 3 times 6 is 18. We could also do 18 divided by
6.
No, 18 divided by 3, because there's 3 pawns that we have to distribute the 18. So I know if my unknown, let's use x, I have 3 unknowns together on one side, the value has to equal 18. Yesterday we did it with triangles and scales. Today I'm introducing it with boxes. When we write the equation, it will look like this. When you have a number next to a variable, this right here is called a coefficient. I've talked about it quite a bit. A coefficient is how we represent multiplication of an unknown number and a number in algebra. Anytime you see a number next to a letter with nothing in between, that means you're multiplying this number times that variable. I usually spend a year trying to get kids to remember this is called a coefficient. And then some of my 6th graders still can't tell me, okay? Coefficients are really important because that's how you identify multiplication. 3 times x will never look like that. This is why the multiplication symbol has to go away, and we'll represent multiplication with a dot. We'll represent multiplication with parentheses. Every now and then I see a little worksheet that has like a star thing in between, but I have to draw 5-6 lines to make that little star. I'm going to use the dot or the parentheses, and I'm going to try to mix it up from now to the end of the year so you see it a lot of different ways. So when you're doing your equation, sometimes it'll have it flipped around where the answer is first, and I'll have 24 equals 6 times t. 6t is your coefficient that represents 6 times t, and you know your answer is 24. If you think about it like the scales we practiced yesterday, what am I doing on both sides to keep my equation balanced and everything equal? Am I taking away? Yesterday was taking away. What am I?
Adding.
No.
Multiplying.
No.
Dividing.
Well, that was the last option. When I'm doing this, what I'm doing, you're thinking multiplying because you're like, well, I know 6 times 4 is 24, Miss Browning. But really what you're doing is you're dividing both sides by 6. Do you remember yesterday I said whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Otherwise, you just goofed up your equation. It's not balanced. If you subtract 5 from one side, you have to subtract 5 from the other side. If you subtract x from one side, you have to subtract x from the other side. If I divide 6 divided by 6, what do I get? 1. So I make this 6 go away. 24 divided by 6 is equal to 4, so 4 equals t. You will never see 1t or 1x written in algebra. You do not put a 1 in front of a variable. When I write x, that's the same as 1x. It means there's only 1x. Do you understand? There's never going to be 0x because you never would put anything there in the first place. So don't ever put a 1 in front of a variable because having the variable alone is the same as putting 1x. When I do 6 divided by 6, the answer is 1, but I wouldn't put 1t because t represents 1. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. I know that's a little higher level. So when we divide, we're going to do something very similar, but it's going to be the opposite. Let's do 9 is equal to t divided by 12. When I solve this problem, I know the value on the left is 9. And whatever I do on this side, the value also has to equal 9 to be equal. So on this one, I'm dividing on this side. What do you think I do on the other side to find the value of t? Any ideas? You got 4 doors to open. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Which one do I pick? Does it make sense to do 9 divided by 12 right now?
No.
Mm-mm.
Find it. Subtract.
No. Not. We're multiplying. Do you remember doing fact families?
Yes.
Okay. If I know t divided by 12 is equal to 9, then that means that 12 times 9 is also equal to t. Do you see what I'm doing? I could also do 9 times 12. It's just like you do fact families when you do multiplication division in 3rd grade, okay? Except now we're throwing a letter in there. So when you have division on this side, division of 12, I'm going to multiply by 12 on both sides. You're always going to do the opposite operation. You go through the magic portal to the other side, and it's opposite world. Everything is the opposite from what they were originally doing. I'm multiplying by both sides. If I do 1 over 12 times 12, what do I get? I get 12 twelfths. What's 12 twelfths equal to? This right here, next year, is going to be written this way. It's going to look a little different. Right now, we're letting you keep your division symbol a little bit longer. When I multiply by both sides, if I'm dividing by 12 on this side and I multiply, I just made that into 1, just like that. Do you see? So I do 9 times 12, so my answer has to be what? 108 is equal to t. Do you see? Whatever you're doing on one side, you're doing the opposite on the other. If I'm adding on one side, I'm subtracting on the other. If I'm subtracting on one side, when I move it over, I'm going to add. You're flipping it around and doing the opposite operation. Give me a thumbs up, sideways down, because y'all look kind of lost. Am I going too fast, or is this kind of making sense? Some of you guys are, that's okay. It just takes some practice. I'm going to show you one more division, and then we're going to split up and do all different things, okay? Let's do 36 divided by s equals 6. Think about your scale. When I do 36 divided by something, my value has to be the same as that side. What do you know S has to be right now? 6. Why do you know that?
6 times 6 equals 36.
Mm-hmm. Could I move this around and rewrite it as 36 divided by 6 equals S and still have a true equation? I can take the S and move it to this side, and I can take the 6 and move it to this side, and I can rewrite the equation to find my answer. S is equal to 6. Sometimes it's easier to rearrange the equation and then solve it. For you guys right now where you're at, sometimes you need to rewrite the equation, flip them around. You guys know fact families. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. You're doing the exact same thing, but now you've got an unknown number.